This is Evolutionary Radio. This is your host, Trevor Kouritzin. As always, my co-host, Steve Smee, is joining me.
We have another show, guys. We're spitting out these shows like porn out here. We have another special guest, Trevor. Pleased to be honored. He's a fellow Canadian as well.
Yeah, this year is going to be exciting. We got a lot of really good Canadian athletes going into the Olympia. Speaking of which, joining us today is IFBB pro Iain Valliere. Welcome to the show.
Hey, thanks for having me, guys. It's a pleasure to be here.
So, Iain, what do you think's going on, man? There's like 17 Canadians going to the Olympia this year.
Yeah, I don't know. Something's in the water up here in Canada for sure. I mean, maybe everyone's feeding off each other and the energy going on up here, but I mean, the fitness scene and the competitive scene especially is definitely exploding here this year. So, it's really good.
Soon people are going to think Canada. They're going to think maple syrup, hockey, and bodybuilding.
That'll be it. Yeah, we'll be on the mat with the hockey, so that'd be cool.
So, Iain, it seems like you've exploded on the scene this year. You turned pro about 4 years ago, but this is the year where everyone's talking, who's this Iain guy? So tell us a little bit about your background. Tell us about when you turned pro and then what really made this year be such a spectacular year for you.
Yeah, so I turned pro in 2014. I did my pro debut in 2015. And I had a pretty good rookie season in 2015. I was actually really happy with, and then the next year, I don't know, 2016, I just couldn't quite get things right. And, I had some of the lowest placings the lowest placings I'd ever had in, whether it was amateur shows, pro shows, anything. So, I kind of took, a step back, reassess things and kind of say, okay, why am I placing the way I'm placing, even though in the two shows I did that year, I was, hands down the most peeled guy in the show. But obviously what was lacking was just the amount of tissue I had, right? I was just a little too small. I was coming in probably like, I think at the Vancouver pro show, I was probably like 225, 230, which for pro bodybuilding, I mean, that's way too small for someone with my frame. Right. So, so after that, I just took the time, made the decision. I was like, hey, I'm going to take as much time as it needs to be at a competitive weight and what I think, is big enough to compete with these big boys and come in that conditioning that I'm used to with some new added muscle. So I didn't really have a specific time frame in mind. I was going to, if it took 2 years, 10 years, I mean, I didn't want to show back up and look the same. I want to show back up and have what happened this year and then, make an impact. Right. So, I put on about 22 to 24 pounds of stage weight really in that 18 months. So I came back and I was, about 248 at the Vancouver or the Indy Pro. I was 251 in Indy, 248 in Vancouver, and about the same in Spain where I won the show that qualified me for the Olympia. So, it was just a patience, I just took the time that was needed, and grinded out every day until I, got where I wanted to be and, just kept improving. Right.
Were you working with Matt Jansen this whole time?
Yeah. So it's funny. The first season I had with Matt Jansen was that 2016 season. And, I love Matt and I'll continue to work with him as long as I'm competing. And, it was one of those things where after that first season, and I said it was the worst season I'd had, it was kind of one of those tough things where most guys just want to throw the coach aside and be like, this coach messed, we didn't get it right. But I knew Matt, had the potential to get me where I needed to be. It was just, we hadn't quite figured things out with what I needed, to get me at my 100% best. And obviously I did need more tissue, like I said. So having that time, that 18 months where I was growing was also a good time for him to learn me and learn my body so that when we came back in 2018, he knew me inside and out in terms of, what food wise worked for me, training wise, this kind of stuff, so that when we came back, not only did we have all the new tissue, but we had a whole new insight in terms of what worked for me. Right. So, it was kind of a double whammy coming back with, a full arsenal of things. Right.
So before we get a little further, Iain, our fans listening and people that want to get to know you, tell us a little bit about your early life. Where were you born? Where did you grow up? When did you really say, wow, I want to bodybuild?
So I grew up here in Ottawa, Ontario, Canada. So I've lived here my whole life. I mean, I grew up about 20 minutes from where I live now. I really haven't gone far. In terms of bodybuilding, I mean, I was always a very active kid. I didn't play team sports. That was the thing. I was never the team sport kind of guy. I mean, I tried playing a little bit in, high school and in elementary school and stuff, but I never got into the team sports. I was always the kind of guy that liked the individual sports. So I ran track and field, 100, 100, 200 meter competitively at quite a high level in high school. a national level in high school. The team sports is really, or the individual sports is really where I excel because I could control the outcome myself 100%, right? If I put in the training and I put in this, it was directly correlated to the outcome I would receive, right? Where in team sports, you can put in all the work you want, but if the rest of your team sucks, you're still going to suck, right? You can, unless you're like a Michael Jordan, you can't carry the team, right? So, I was just always more, prone to the individual sports in that sense. So after high school ended, I realized, track and field wasn't going to be a career for me. And at this point I had started lifting some weights, and started to get, kind of big. I was maybe 210, 215. I wasn't humongous, but, and then I started working for the Canadian supplement chain called Popeye Supplements here in Canada. And they were the sponsor for the local bodybuilding show that was coming up in the fall. So the guys that I worked with were like, hey man, you're pretty big. Why don't you try this show, try this out? And at this point I knew nothing about bodybuilding. I was 18 at this point. I didn't know anything about bodybuilding. I didn't know, I knew of the guys like Ronnie Coleman and obviously the greats, like Arnold Schwarzenegger and these kind of guys, Lee Haney, but I didn't know too much about it. I didn't know the poses. I didn't know anything really. So, the tanning, I didn't know that you had to shave everything down. I didn't know the first thing. So, the guys there kind of helped me out into my first show. I really did my prep myself. Other than the few local guys kind of throwing some knowledge here and there, but so that would have been 2010. And then, after I did that first show, I won the junior class. And then within a year of that, I won the Canadian Junior Nationals in 2011. And then I turned pro in 2014. So.
How old are you now?
You're 26, right? If my math is right.
27. Yeah. I turned 28 later in the year. Yeah.
Okay. So you're about Trevor's age. Trevor's about a year or two younger than you.
I certainly don't look like you, so you're definitely a head start on me. Yeah. Wow. You're definitely very young, Iain. You got time behind your side. This is an old man sport.
So I'm curious to hear, Iain, what are your plans for the rest of this year and next year? What kind of goals do you have?
Well, obviously now the Olympia is the next thing on my agenda.
What can we expect from you then?
Well, the Olympia, I'm definitely going to be, almost probably another 8 to 10 pounds heavier than I was when I qualified for the Olympia 2 months ago. So I'll be, the mid to high 250s. So, I'm going to be bigger, fuller than I was when I, qualified, try and bring the same conditioning, if not even better, with a little added fullness and size. So really my goal for the Olympia, it's tough because it's your first one and there's a lot of guys I haven't stood next to, but, being honest with myself, say there's 20 guys, top 10 would be a huge accomplishment for me. But if I could get a placing, like after 15, everyone's just 16. So if I could be in the numbers 15, 14, 13, I'd be content. I'd go home and I'd be happy. But top 10 would really, really fulfill me. After that, take an off season, I'm getting married in November. So, get married, have a little vacation, and then, into an off season. And then once the pro schedule comes out for 2019, we'll start playing shows from there. I've been thinking about doing the Arnold, so we'll see what that, in terms of time frame, if that works out. If not, we'll do something, earlier in the spring, like I did Indianapolis this year, was end of March. So maybe something like that.
So the analysis of the Olympia, we've had a couple guys come on in your situation, your shoes, and they've said the top 7 is pretty much locked in.
Yeah.
Like it's very hard to crack the top 7. Do you agree with that analysis?
Yes. Okay, well, no, because nothing's ever set in stone. Is it? Yes, if you look at it from like a analytical standpoint, but guys can come off and guys can come on. For all you know, so one of these guys in the top 6, top 7 could peak completely wrong. He could get sick. He could mess up his diuretics. Who knows? And he could look like crap. So anything can happen in such a short period of time, especially when you're talking about peaking for a show. So. But yeah, if you're going to be very general with it, yeah, I say the top 7 to top 8 is pretty locked in. But after that, then, 8th, 9th through, everywhere else, is fair game. And I think I can fall in there as much as anybody else can. There's guys there that I know I can absolutely beat. And there's guys there that I haven't got a chance to stand next to, in a while or ever that, I'd like to see how I fare against and that I think in my head I could have a good chance of beating, but you never know until you stand next to someone, right? So,
do you think this is Phil Heath's show to lose?
Yeah, I think Phil Heath will have this one pretty handily, yeah.
I think Phil Heath has got this one, but I think next year there's going to be a new Olympia champ. That's my personal opinion.
I think Phil will get 10 and then he'll retire and then it'll be on to someone else. So I think he'll get this one, the next 2, and then he'll get his 10. That's all he wants is 10. Then I think he'll move on. But I can't see. I mean, there's some guys coming up on the radar that are potential threats, but I don't think there's anyone that's a potential enough threat within the next 2 years. Like I think someone like Nathan Daasha, absolutely structure-wise, with a couple added pounds of muscle to his back and hamstrings, which he has been improving, I think is definitely a threat. I don't really see Ramy as the threat that a lot of people see him as. I mean, I've watched the show from the front row multiple times, and just he doesn't have that detail and the separation and that bubbly 3-dimensional look that a lot of these other guys have, right? The crazy just crazy detail that you can only really see in person. He's huge and he's overwhelmingly so compared to the other guys, but it's not the same when you stand next to someone like Phil. So I think someone like really structurally superior like a Nathan. That brings up some weak parts. I think Bonac is good, but he's a little too narrow in the clavicle, so I don't think he'll ever be able to beat a guy like Phil. I mean, Sean's come close in the past, but I think his time's passed. So, I mean, I think someone like Nathan or maybe a Brandon if he brings up his legs, but I don't know if he's getting a little old for that maybe. But, I think Nathan's probably your next best bet, and I think he needs 2 to 3 years at least to be where Phil is.
Who would you say is your best friend out of the top 10 from last year? Do you network with any of these guys? You work out with any of these guys? You talk on the phone?
Yeah, the only one I am friends with would be Nathan. I mean, I hate to say that after I just plugged him saying a little. Now it seems like I'm biased in that opinion, but I mean, whether I knew him or not, I would give you the same opinion. We both work with Matt Jansen, so I mean, I do know Nathan decently well. I mean, he was down there at Indy when I competed there. I mean, we have spent a little bit of time together. And then obviously through Matt, we network. So, in the top 10, that would probably be the guy I know the most. I mean, there's some other guys, outside of the top 10, or I mean, not necessarily outside of the top 10, but that we're not considering top 10 guys from previous year. Like Alexis Rivera and Josh Wade, these kind of guys I've competed with. And, I really like those guys.
Is there like a bro going, like, does everyone kind of, because, like in the NFL, for example, it's a brotherhood. When someone's injured on the field, everyone kneels and, and prays for them to make sure they're okay. Is that it's the same in bodybuilding, or are people kind of more selfish?
No, absolutely it is. I mean, especially at the higher level. I find like in amateur shows, obviously it's a lot less so. I think, you go to athletes meetings at amateur shows, everyone's mean-munging each other, thinking they're, like who's good and but I mean, at pro shows, everybody knows what everybody looks like. We all know kind of where we stand. I mean, there's no secrets here, right? And the top pro competitive circuit is like 30, 40 guys. It's not like 5,000 people, 10,000, 100,000 people like the amateur circuit, right? So we all know each other fairly well. I mean, obviously there's the outliers that everyone knows are like, kind of like the dickheads, that kind of don't talk to anyone. If you try and be friendly with them backstage, they kind of brush you off, and they're just a little too self-involved and can't really have fun with it. I mean, if that's your game, then cool. But I mean, it's just chill out and enjoy the experience, especially when you're at a show like the Olympia, right? I mean, for most of us, this is an experience as much as it is a competition, right? So, some guys I think need to take a step back and really see, take it for what it is and enjoy the moment, right?
Do you want to say who any of those dickheads are? Or you just want to say no comment?
I won't do that, no. I won't throw anybody under the bus, but everyone knows who those kind of guys are.
So, Iain, you're immensely popular, man. I've probably got close to 100 DMs from people wanting to ask you questions. So my advice to you is after this interview, make a clothing line, start a DVD. I mean, like, people want you, man. You got to think of some way to monetize this.
My brother-in-law, Chris, he's pretty big on YouTube, and he does a lot of YouTube, and I've started doing a bit in his videos, and even on his, I get a lot of people being like, yeah, Iain needs to get a channel, So it's definitely something I need to, potentially get going in the next while. I mean, I'm thinking about doing a series, once I land in Vegas, and kind of doing like a week of into the show, something like that. I think would be good, kind of to start off with, and then we'll go from there, seeing how the response is, right?
Or honestly, dude, you could do it after Vegas. I mean, you're about to get married. I think that'd be some really cool YouTube footage.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, start in Vegas and do the show, go into the wedding. I have vacation after that. There's lots of good content to vlog, especially in this fall for me. So it would be a good time to definitely start. Yeah.
So just for our listeners, Iain is married to Melissa Bumstead, who is Chris Bumstead's older sister.
Yes.
So, like, talk about a freaking power couple.
So all three of us are doing the Olympia this year. Yeah.
That's got to be like a first record or something. I don't think anyone's ever done that before.
Well, they did it last year together, and I'm to my knowledge, they were the first brother-sister, and then we added me in this year, so we just one-upped them from last year to add a brother-sister and a husband-wife all in one. Because there's been husband-wives, first of all, obviously there's been lots of those, but brother-sisters, I don't think there have really been any, and then to add me into the mix as well. So,
do you have any brothers or sisters?
I have one older sister and then a half-sister, yeah. My older sister's 18 months older than me. She's like 28, 29. She lives in Vancouver.
Well, you got to get her contact info into Matt, so then all four of you can go.
Yeah, she's definitely not in the competing world. She's like into fitness and stuff, but she's very Vancouver, you know, like she works in the movie industry, you know, she works for a company that does casting for like Netflix originals and stuff like this. And she does like those pole dancing classes and, you know, plays instruments and stuff like that, rock climbs, you know, she's more Vancouver fitness than she is like bodybuilding fitness, but she's coming down to the Olympia this year with my mom and she's super excited. I mean, this is definitely a new experience for her. So, you know, she loves to come out and support her, you know, so this will be a cool thing for her to see for sure. So, and my mom doesn't miss any shows. She's been to every show I've ever done.
So when do you all like head over to Vegas? Do you head out like a week prior, or do you like to get there kind of a few days before?
No, we're flying out pretty early. So we compete, pre-judging for me is on Friday. Finals are on Saturday. Chris and Melissa, pre-judging's Friday morning, finals Friday night. We fly out Sunday prior. So we compete on the 14th. We fly out on the 9th. So we're there like 5-6 days early.
I'm curious, how does it work in customs or immigration when you get to the United States? And they're like, okay, you're a Canadian citizen. What are you doing here in the United States? Do you tell them, yeah, I'm competing in the Olympia? Like, I'm just curious. That'd be pretty funny. Like, the guy would be like, you know, wow, you know?
I mean, you got to watch it sometimes depending on what you have in terms of visa status, right? You know, a lot of times you're just best to say that you're going there to watch the event, you know? Just like you're going to Vegas, you're going to watch, you know, you're a bodybuilder, you're going to watch the Mr. Olympias this weekend. You're just going to, you know, walk the expo and watch. Usually that's the route I go. You know, if you have a P1 or P0 athlete visa or something like that, I mean, yeah, say you're going to compete, it's no big deal. You can claim prize money. I mean, even then, if you don't have a visa, I mean, sometimes it's not a huge deal, but depending on the country you're going to, but yeah, I mean, you know, it depends. You got to feel out the immigration officer, right? I mean, if they seem like they're into the fitness and stuff, sometimes you can disclose what's going on. I mean, you know, if they seem like they're one of the stern, tough ass ones, then maybe you just say you're going to watch, you know?
My question is, like, you're like a big guy. Do you get any like slack from the customs officials being like, hey, is there any steroids in your bag or anything like that?
It goes completely one way or the other. You either get like some people that love it and they're like, they want to ask questions and they, you know, are you a pro? I mean, you know, ask this funny question, how much you bench press? You know, they get the typical questions that big guys get asked and they're into it. They love it, especially when you're flying like into the South. I mean, you get, you know, like a, you know, southern down, like you fly into Tennessee or Texas or something like this. I mean, they love it, you know. Depends where you're going. I mean, some guys you'll get younger guys and they kind of want to, you know, try and play like they're tougher, bigger than you, and they'll try and, you know, intimidate you a bit, and they'll want to, you know, ask you got any steroids with you and this kind of stuff, and, you know, they try and freak you out. But I mean, you know,
I could see a big black woman as a customs official loving you, just being like,
love it.
Oh, honey, like
that's kind of what I was insinuating with the South. Yeah. Yeah, you get the big blacks, you know, Southern ladies. I mean, they're all over. They want to touch my arms, and, you know, they're funny with it. I mean, it's fun. Yeah.
Okay, we got a ton of listener questions, so let's get into them.
Sure.
Our first one comes from Dr. I don't even know how to say it, Dr. something. How can you manage keeping the waist so small when you're putting on so much muscle mass?
I think a big thing with this is it's a diet related question in terms of eating foods that agree with you and that, you know, that you're not having digestive distress. If you're constantly bloated and having digestive distress from the foods you're eating, it's gonna expand your waistline, right? So that's one angle from it. Secondly, is just an abdominal control thing while you're training. I mean, you know, when I'm training, even if I'm not wearing a belt or anything, I'm always being conscious of keeping, you know, my rib cage and my abs and like obliques and everything kind of drawn in, keeping everything tight. and really to stabilize myself with my core. So it's kind of keeping those muscles tight and getting them used to staying that way, so that when you're on stage or, anything like that, that you're having that good abdominal control. So, I think that's the biggest thing. A lot of guys, eat way too much food that doesn't agree with them. They're constantly bloated all the time. And that's blowing their stomach up. And two, when they're training, they're big stomach breathing and they're not controlling their waist. The only thing they're using to control it is a belt. And other than that, they're just, letting it go. I think those are the two biggest things.
Talk to us about some of your favorite foods, like foods that you find digest well for you and foods that you find do not digest well.
I don't do oats. I'm like probably the only bodybuilder that doesn't eat oats. I haven't eaten oats in a year. Like I can't even think of the last time I ate oats. I mean, plain oats I don't eat. I mean, for breakfast I eat ground turkey and rice. So jasmine rice is like the number one go-to carb for me. So I can eat jasmine rice and I'm a guy that I have to eat a lot. I mean, if you guys, Matt Jansen does a good series on his website where he actually shows, all the nutritional stuff for his athletes that he's doing for the Olympia. And I mean, if you go on there, I eat significantly more than, Nathan Dash or Charles Griffin or some of these guys who are big guys as well, right? I need a lot of food or I kind of wither away. So, for me to eat 400 or 500 grams of rice in a meal, getting close to a show is not abnormal, So, for me, that's definitely the best digesting. So that's generally my main carb source. I eat a bit of sweet potato. I don't eat white starchy potatoes. Those don't do well for me. So yeah, I mean, in terms of carb sources, in terms of protein sources, I eat them all. I mean, I have 2 chicken meals a day. I have a salmon meal. I have a whitefish meal. I have a beef meal. I have an egg meal. I mean, I kind of do a variety of, one meal of basically every different protein source. So that also I find keeps it so that I'm not getting too stagnant with anything. I kind of keeping it mixed up. Maybe if you want to get a little bro sciencey, you're getting a bit of different amino acids, whatever, from them. Who knows? Maybe you're not, maybe you are. I don't know. But in terms of variety, it's just nice to, so you're not eating chicken 5-6 meals a day. I get something different, a little meal every meal. And, it makes it so that I find I tolerate them a lot better, right? When you're deep into an off season, guys are eating 6 meals of chicken a day and they're ganging it down. They're wondering why. It's not because you're full. It's because you're eating chicken 6 meals a day and you hate it, So I think that's a big thing, right? Is just mixing up sources. But yeah, the ones I definitely tolerate the best, jasmine rice. Yeah.
Did you get a food sensitivity test done or anything like that? Or was this just done through trial and error?
That's just trial and error. I've never had one done. I mean, oats, I did eat them for years. I mean, one, I don't like to taste them too much. And two, I used to eat them a lot in the morning and I found my energy levels just went down. I don't know if they were messing with my insulin or something weird. I don't know what it was, but I just wasn't tolerating them well. And I got really bloated and, I was getting, digestive issues from them. So I just stopped eating them. I mean, they're no better than eating any other carb source. So for me, I just cut them out.
And then is your diet mainly high protein, high carb, low fat?
It depends. I mean, we've had it so that, carbs and protein are always pretty high, but I mean, sometimes the fats are high too. So, I mean, it depends. I mean, especially when we're getting closer to shows, like I carb load, like when we load for shows, I actually do a lot higher fats and a little less carbs. I find I fill out and retain a lot more fullness if I keep a lot of fats in. If I drop my fats down, I'm just eating large quantities of rice. I burn through it so fast. If I have a little fats with it to kind of delay that digestion a bit and kind of let my body hold on to it a little longer, I find the carbs stick a lot better. So, I mean, when I'm carbing up, I'll eat, 30 to 40 grams of fat a meal sometimes,
Cheat meals. When was the last time you had a cheat meal? Probably has it been a while, or do you get one in like once a week these days?
No, definitely not once a week. I mean, I've had one. I mean, after I won my show in Spain, we were doing kind of one every 6 to 7 days on like leg day or something, just because I was already so lean after just competing and I still had 8 weeks the Olympia. So we slowly increased food a bit and we're utilizing a cheat like that. And then we kind of cut those out. And I had a few weeks where I didn't have one. I think I had one like maybe 2 weeks ago. I had just like a burger and fries, and I think that was it.
So that's a cheat meal, burger and fries. That's like a typical American diet every day.
I mean, and see, this is another thing, like going back to Matt, in terms of this was another thing of trial and error. I mean, I've done every different kind. I've had pizza, I've had sushi, but I mean, we know the predictability of how I will look after having a burger and fries. We know, we know exactly what it's going to the outcome will be. Where other things, sometimes it's, I'll eat sushi, sometimes my weight will fly up, sometimes I'll lose weight. Where the burger and fries, I generally, if I eat the same kind of burger and fries from the same place every time, I kind of always look the same after. I'll gain, 1.5 to 2 pounds, and then it's gone within a day or so. My energy's back up. So it's very predictable. So we like predictability, especially when you're getting close to shows. You don't want to throw something in, gain 10 pounds of water, have some digestive distress or something like that, like I was saying. So, that's usually what our go-to is, because we also use it closer to shows, right? When I'm carving up sometimes, right, the day before, where, utilize burgers and fries, stuff like that. So we kind of, like to get my body primed and, keep the same sources like that in beforehand, so that when we use them closer to show, we kind of, like I said, can predict the outcome, right?
Any dairy or any fruit in your diet?
Fruit, no. Dairy, no. Off season, sometimes I'll have some Greek yogurt or stuff like that. If you even consider that dairy, really. But no. Fruit, yeah, in the off season sometimes. But I'll have some berries or something like that. But I do eat bananas once in a while. Pre-training with as a added kind of like fast digesting carb source. But no, dairy I definitely don't have a ton of. No.
A lot of bodybuilders don't consume fruit. Why is that? Is it really cause a fat gain, or do you think that?
I think there's a lot of good nutrients in fruits and stuff in terms of antioxidants and stuff if you're eating the right ones, or But I'm supplementing so many different antioxidants in terms of vitamin supplements, and in terms of getting like a lower GI and better carb source. I find I'm better to eat like a rice or a potato, right? But sometimes having a faster digesting carb source like that is not bad. There is places for them, but in the amount of food I'm eating, for me to get like a significant amount of carbs from eating like berries or something, I've eaten like 20 pounds of them. So it's easier for me to eat like 2-3 cups of rice, right?
Has there anything changed? I'll let Trevor jump in the past 5 years. 5 years ago, you were like 21 or 22.
Yeah.
And now you're mid to late 20s. Has there anything changed in the past 5 years, like in the bodybuilding community in terms of dieting at your level? I'm not talking about an average Joe. I'm talking about your level. Like example, probably like I've never seen like fruit part of a diet, but I have seen dairy. Like if you go back 10, 20 years, maybe.
Yeah.
Some of the gurus were telling guys, oh, you need to drink milk and stuff. And that's kind of gone away. Like 5 years ago, what has changed, you think?
At the top level, no, I don't think much has changed. I think the top guys stick to the basics. They know what works, and I don't think they mess around too much. Obviously at the lower levels, yeah, you get fad diets that people try. You're trying to prep for shows. Guys are doing macro diets, and, guys are doing paleo, or I don't even know what the hell's around. You get guys doing keto diets and stuff like this, right? Not that I think keto is great in a lot of aspects, but, I don't do it. But, I think that at the high, pro level, I think most of these guys are doing, generally the same thing. There's some guys that don't tolerate carbs well, that are eating less carbs and maybe more fats. And then there's guys like me who need a ton of carbs and I tolerate them really well, who are eating more carbs and maybe a little less fats. But I think, across the board, these kind of same, basic principles have been around since, for 20, 30 years. I think we're doing the same stuff, you would find, Kevin or Sean or Dorian doing in the 90s we're doing now.
So what separates the first place Mr. Olympia and the guy who can't even break, in the top 15 or 20?
Is
it genetics? Is it genetics? Is it maybe their training?
It could be both. I think so if you talk about someone like Phil, obviously genetics has to play a role. In terms of just his genetic shape and structure and, the fullness of his muscle bellies and small joints, and the detail that he is his muscle, he's born with that. You can't build that. You can build tissue and you can build quality and, you can get lean and these kind of things. But, in terms of structure and in terms of how your muscle looks, you can't really change that too much. I hate to say, I've heard Matt Jansen say this. I hate, it's silly to say guys work harder than others because you don't know how hard anyone's working. I think at this level, everyone's working hard. I know that when I go to the gym, I'm working as hard as I possibly can, and I assume that everybody else is, right? Do I know there's guys that aren't training as hard as they could or as smart as they could? Yeah, of course. I think a lot of it too is, you know, especially at the top level, like guys like Phil. If you watch someone like Phil train, Phil just knows exactly how to train for Phil. You know, Phil doesn't train for anybody else. He's not trying to slug around crazy weights. He's the amount he can contract his muscles, how efficiently he can, is insane. I mean, it's like watching, you know, old Lee Priest videos, or, you know, some of these guys that when you watch their exercise, you know, them do exercises, the form, you know, and is perfect, right? You know, you can see them contracting each muscle. You know, the execution is perfect on them. I think that's something like Phil. I mean, Phil is just, you know, how well he can isolate and contract his muscles is far beyond a lot of these other guys. You know, you see some guys just, you know, slugging around 4-plate bent over rows, probably using 10% back, and, you know, who knows what else, right? So, I mean, there is obviously guys that, you know, are training at maximal effort, just not maybe as smart, you know? So, you know, that's obviously some aspect. I mean, a lot of it is, you know, in terms of conditioning wise is obviously just will and tenacity. I mean, some guys just, you know, aren't good at dieting. They cheat on their diets. You know, they don't do their cardio. I mean, there's even at the top pro ranks, I mean, there's guys like that, right? But I think when you're talking about, you know, top 10 Olympia, everyone's trying 100%. And I think it's really just coming down to small things, you know, maybe a prep didn't quite go right, or, you know, genetic structures, things like this. I mean, you know, that's really where it comes down to.
Ian, building on Steve's question where he asked what has changed the last 5 years, we got a lot of listener questions about intra-workout shakes. Mm-hmm. I think that's really changed in the last 10 years. I'd say 10 years ago, no one was really doing that. But now, like, everyone's got these crazy essential amino acid, highly branched cyclic dextrin.
Yeah, the peri-workout kind of world has definitely changed. You know, I think that kind of started to get brought in more by like guys like John Meadows and stuff. You know, a few years back, you know, when I can't even remember what that product he was, where that
Plasma.
Plasma Vol or something. What was it called?
Plasma. We had Mark Dugdale on the show yesterday.
Yeah, with Mark Dugdale. Yeah, Plasma. Yeah. So, you know, products like that, I think we're kind of the first ones to really bring into the intra-workout world, or like post-workout, you know, carb protein combinations. So yeah, I mean, that's definitely something that's changed for sure. I mean, you know, obviously I think a lot of this has come more into the forefront when things like insulin and stuff are being used in, you know, around training. So I think a lot of those are being, you know, utilized in there kind of to correlate with that. So I think now that that's become a bigger thing now than it was maybe 10, 15, 20 years ago, that's kind of where it's kind of come in correlating to that.
Do you use any intra-workout shakes?
Yeah, sometimes. I mean, right, like during prep, I don't use any like carb sources or anything in them. You know, I'll use like an essential amino acid or a branched chain amino acid. The company I'm with, ANS, makes a good one that I use. And, you know, I'll throw in like some different stuff in there, you know, like some citrulline and stuff in my pre-workout as well, or, you know, the glycerol powder and stuff like that, just stuff to, you know, get pumping, you know, cellular hydration stuff. And then I'll use some, you know, EAAs during, then just like a good whey isolate and post-workout, you know.
I'm curious about your sleeping habits as well. You know, how many hours of sleep are you getting every night, and how important is that?
I mean, I think everyone's different. I mean, I can, as I get closer to shows, I find I'm a lighter sleeper, but I don't feel any less rested. So, I mean, you know, I go to bed pretty late some days. I mean, I'll go to bed at, you know, 1, 2 o'clock, and I'll sleep till, you know, 7, 8. So, I mean, you know, I'm generally getting between 6 and 8 hours, which is, you know, sufficient for me. And then I'll take, you know, at least an hour or two nap during the day, you know, 45 minutes to an hour. So, you know, that's generally what I find I feel the best. I mean, I eat my first meal of the day, and then I'll, you know, take a nap for an hour or so. You know, then I eat my second meal, and then I'll go train. So I find that's kind of what works best for me. But yeah, I mean, I sleep is obviously important, but I don't think sleeping 12 hours at night is any more beneficial than sleeping like 7, you know, 6.
I think someone who says they're sleeping 12 hours are probably only sleeping 8, but they're just like lying in bed on their phone for like a couple hours.
Watching Netflix or something, you know. Yeah.
So we got some more listener questions. These ones come from Brett Wyatt. Ian, what has been the hardest aspect of your bodybuilding journey? And then a fun question. I see that you enjoy cars. What is your dream car?
Oh, geez. Okay, hardest part. I don't know. I think the hardest part really was, you know, after that 2016 season that I had that wasn't very good, you know, was was trying to stay motivated long enough and like see the end of the tunnel on that, right? You know, because especially when you're deep into an off season, it's so easy to be like, fuck it, let's go eat McDonald's, or, you know, let's take a day off training, or, you know, I treated that 18 months, you know, 2 years, just like I was in a prep. I mean, I ate my meals perfectly every day. I trained every day. You know, I was treating it like a prep. I wasn't treating it like an off season. I was just treating it with a prep with more food. I mean, everything was regimented and 110% like it was during prep. And I think that is really why it yielded such good results for me. You know, that was tough mentally in terms of, like I said, seeing the light at the end of the tunnel for that. Cause, you know, there were so many times where I'm like, why am I even wasting my time? You know, like I'm going to look the exact same, or, you know, it was kind of hard to see the light at the end of that one. I'd say that, but I mean, it's when you're doing something that you love in bodybuilding, I can't say that like any of it's hard. Like it's hard because you're putting maximal effort into it every day. Like I'm making sure I'm eating all my food and I'm training at 100%, but like, that's not hard. You know, it's, if it was hard for me, I wouldn't love doing it so much. I'm so good at it because it's not hard for me. I enjoy it, you know, and there's a difference between difficulty in terms of something you're doing, and then in terms of like mental, like drainage. And I don't find it's taxing on me in that aspect. And that's really why I enjoy it so much. You know, I have had injuries in the past. I mean, I had broke my arm. I had a spiral fracture, broke my arm wrestling in 2012, which put me out for a bit, you know, things like that. But I mean, even those things, I mean, it's, you know, they're speed bumps, right? I mean, everyone gets injuries. I mean, breaking your arm is honestly lesser than tearing a bicep. I mean, at least it's just a bone. It heals back up. There's no, you know, physical, you know, change in terms of, you know, the bicep snapping up and it looks different, the insertion or something. So in terms of cars, I mean, man, I don't know. I'm not that big of a car guy. Like, he probably saw this because he watched Chris's YouTube video, and I just bought a little Audi S4 as like a second car because I have a truck, a newer Toyota truck, but my wife and I were sharing it, and I was like, okay, I'm not sharing my truck anymore. You know, I'll get something that if you need the truck, I can, you know, rip around something fun. So I don't know. We'll come back to that. I'll think on that one.
You need someone with snow tires living in Ottawa, right?
Yeah, you need snow tires. But at least I got a truck that's drive, and the Audi's all-wheel drive, so I'm good there.
Do you have a pine tree in your front yard?
I don't have a pine tree. I got a maple tree.
Okay. I have a palm tree in my yard. I'm in Florida.
Iain, the official drink of Evolutionary Radio is Canada Dry Ginger Ale.
There you go.
All of our American listeners think that's like what we drink in Canada.
Just ginger ale, Canada Dry ginger ale.
Yeah,
I mean that's good stuff.
They think it's like a Canadian tradition. I'm like, no, we don't really drink ginger ale much here in Canada. Maybe when we're sick,
just as much as you guys do, you know.
We got another fun question. Even More Lynch asks, will you race my RS5 with your S4 when you come to Kingston?
No, it's an RS5. You'll kill me. I ain't getting killed, but yeah, for sure. If he wants to come to Ottawa, I'm not going to Kingston. But if he wants to come here, I'll race him. Yeah.
When I first read this question, I thought it was a question about SARMs. He said S4.
RS5.
I was like, I don't think Ian's using SARMs. Probably not. But never know.
Let's race SARMs.
I got a question for you. Ian. Do you work out with your wife? Well, future wife.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, when Chris wasn't like, now that we're getting closer to the Olympia, you know, I like to train with Chris as much as I can, you know, one, to make sure that he's pushing himself at 100%. I mean, he's fighting for an Olympia win here, right? So, you know, make sure that he's at, you know, maximal effort every day is definitely important. You know, and he's had some speed bumps during his prep. So I just want to make sure his head's on straight, right, in terms of training, and that, you know, everything's going smooth with that. But I mean, if I'm not training with him, I'm training with her. Yeah. I mean, before 8 weeks out from the Olympia, I trained with her probably 4 to 5 days a week. So, yeah, for the most part we do. I mean, obviously we're not training the same weights. But I mean, you know, the thing is, even though, you know, she's my fiance, she's great to train with because I still want to impress her when I train, right? You know, when I train, I'm like, yo, I'm putting on the full stack on this fucking thing. I'm going to do 15 reps because I got to look like the big motherfucker around here, you know? So I still try and, you know, it really helps me force the intensity when I train with her. And same for her, you know, like I can help kind of push her, you know, a little farther than she's probably used to. You know, she'll, you know, use some intensifiers that she might not generally use. So yeah, I mean, we train as often as we can. Yeah.
Men never really grow up. You know, when we're in elementary school, we want to show off our bike. When we get a little bit older, we want to show off our car.
Yeah,
you want to show off your muscles. It's just exciting.
I mean, we've been together for 6 years, and I mean, I probably try and impress her more in the gym now than I did back then, because now she sees tons of pro bodybuilders all the time, and I got to make her think I'm, as strong and as good as they are, right? So back then, she thought I was the biggest guy. Now she's used to seeing big guys, right? So
I'll tell you this, Ian. My graphic designer who does all the podcast photos. Yeah. He's done this is episode 212. So I mean, he's done 212 pro bodybuilders, and when I sent him your photo, he was like, holy shit.
That's a good one too, because my face looks like I'm right about to die.
Someone said he had red eyes in the picture, and I said, I was like, he must be wearing those contacts, that football players wear.
Red eyes. The lighting at that show was really weird. I mean, the show was in Spain. I mean, the lighting was cool. It made you look really good. But I mean, it also casts lots of shadows. So like on my face, I have shadowing under my eyes, and it accentuates that like skeleton die face. I didn't really look that bad. I mean, I had pictures from 20 minutes before where my face looks actually pretty normal, probably like it does right now, but under those stage lights where it kind of caught some shadowing, it made me look terrifying, so I got a lot of comments on that when I posted that, being like, holy crap, dyed face,
Well, I mean, on this podcast, it's amazing. You seem like a very gentle guy. Like, am I missing? Are you like really like one of those guys who like goes kicks everyone's ass and stuff? You're one of those quiet types that in real life you go around like beating people up, right?
No, I'm laid back. I'm
kidding.
I don't get too worked up about too much,
Ian, we got one more listener question for you, then we got some fun questions.
Sure.
How to control cravings. He said a bunch of stuff, but I don't think he speaks English, so I don't really know how to interpret it. But basically, how do you control cravings when dieting?
Okay, I mean, well, cravings come from a couple of different angles. So, I mean, cravings, one can be, gaps in nutrition, in certain aspects, right? So, I mean, if you're craving certain things, you might need to look into, what you're missing in terms of micronutrients that could be causing that. So, I mean, that's one way, in terms of, vitamin supplementation or, different greens that are, can fill those gaps. In terms of micronutrients. And I mean, the second thing is you just do it, and I think that's one thing that separates the guys that get nasty peeled from people that struggle to do it every time. Is it's just the mental tenacity of just doing it, like it's not an afterthought. I mean, you don't think of cheating on your diet. We all get cravings the same. We all do it, but it's whether you succumb to them or not. Right. I mean, I don't think I've ever cheated on a diet in my life, and I don't ever plan to, and I think that's one thing that, I think guys need to learn, is that these are normal things for everyone to feel, but if you want to succeed, you need to push through them. Right. I mean, I get the same question too, a lot of times with people like, how do you find motivation? It's like, you don't find motivation. Motivation is like a temporary state. You're not motivated all the time. I'm not motivated every day. When I go to the train every day, I'm not motivated. I just do it. I do it. And that is my motivation. Is you just get up and do it, whether you're motivated or not. I think people are constantly searching for motivation when they're not going to find it all the time, and then the days they're not motivated, they're like, I can't train, or I had a bad workout because I wasn't motivated. It's like, you can't have bad days because you're not motivated. You can't train because you're not motivated. You need to do it every day, whether you are or not. And I think that's why kind of separates the elite from the lesser so, right?
I love it. It's just putting one foot in front of the other. Right? Yeah. It's like that age-old saying, how do you eat an elephant? You do it one bite at a time.
Exactly. I mean, you just do it. I mean, there's nothing, it's just, you do it.
Are you hungry?
Not right now. I mean, I'm still eating a fair amount of food because, I was lucky, my body responded really well after Spain, that we got to bring the food up pretty high. And then, my body kind of, utilized it really well. So we took it out in small portions, and I continued to get, improve my conditioning. So we haven't gone too low. I mean, I'm eating maybe 225 grams of carbs right now. My protein's probably at 450 grams or so, 400. And then my fats are probably like 50 to 70. So, I mean, I'm still eating a fair amount of calories. I mean, I'm only doing 35 minutes of cardio a day. I'm not starving by any means. I mean, in the evening, do I get like, like right now I'm sitting, I haven't eaten in 2 hours, I'm like, I can feel like, I'm like, okay, I'm ready to eat. But like, is it like I'm going to hang this call up and go like, oh my God, I need to eat something. I got to go eat a pizza. I'm starving. Like, no, obviously, So it's, it's just, but I think people also need to stop taking hunger in a prep as a bad thing and use it and embrace it as like thinking like this is you burning body fat. Like you need to feel this hunger. You need to feel this depletion. You know, take it and embrace that feeling as striving towards what your outcome that you want is, right? You want to get crazy peeled, you got to feel that, you know? And I think people look at it as like, oh, I'm hungry, I need to eat. It's like, no, you don't need to eat. Like you eat when you need to eat. And if you're still hungry after you eat, well, that's good. Like, don't worry about it, you know? I think they take it as, you know, too directly, and you just need to embrace the feeling, right?
What beast mode truly is it's willing to do that extra amount of cardio. It's willing to, you know, fight through those hunger pains.
Exactly.
Nowadays, people think beast mode is, oh, I'm going to take the most drugs. You know, I'm going to take these crazy. That's not beast mode. Beast mode
or I'm going to, you know, do a sloppy 1 rep deadlift and put it on Instagram, you know? Like, that's not going beast mode. I mean, beast mode is doing things right and doing it consistently, you know?
I can't imagine your grocery bill when you go grocery shopping.
Yeah,
For you guys, all you Olympia guys, I mean, you might spend like hundreds of dollars each time you go to the grocery store, huh?
I mean, especially me, because I do eat a lot. I mean, I probably spend, $400 to $500 a week at least.
Jeez.
Yeah, I mean, they must like know you at the grocery store. Hey, this big guy coming in here, you know?
Yeah, I mean, I live like 100 yards from a Costco, so they know me pretty good. Yeah.
Oh, okay. So your fans, you know, want to know a little bit more about you outside of bodybuilding. We like to do a little segment called First and Five. So I'm going to ask you 5 questions.
Sure.
And just nail your honest answer. Hardest part of bodybuilding is what?
Oh, jeez. Hardest part of bodybuilding. That's a tough one because I just said all the reasons why it's not hard.
Shaving your back.
Yeah, we'll come back to that one. Keep going.
No, I said shaving your back.
Oh, shaving your back.
All right, I'll give you a chance to think about that one. How about music? That's
just impossible because I can't do that myself.
You need a girlfriend for that one, or you need one of those back.
The hardest thing with it, I think, and where the most people fail is just being consistent with things, you know, is just consistency day in and day out. I think that's the biggest thing where people fail and why they don't get the results that, you know, especially you see here people are like 3 months in, they're like, I don't look any different. It's like, okay, well, do what you did for 3 months for 3 years, then let's have this conversation, you know? If you haven't changed in 3 years and you're doing things consistently for that 3 years, you're going to change. You know, I think that's the hardest thing is just staying consistent and staying, you know, staying the path, right?
Ian, before I had a girlfriend, my sister used to help me shave my back and, you know, back of my hamstrings and everything. Oh, yeah. And I remember just like being naked with a sock on my wiener and just, like helping me shave my back and like lower back. And she's like, Trevor, I better get a really good Christmas gift after this.
The first show I ever did, my sister, because she was living with me at the time, she shaved me down because I remember I didn't even know, like I said, I didn't know about like the tanning or anything. I showed up at the registration and they asked me if I was doing my own tanning or if I had tan company. I was like, I don't know. And they're like, okay, well, you can, you know, if you want, the tanning people are here, you can blah, 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 pay them, whatever. So I paid the guy and then I went to go get sprayed. And he's like, oh man, you got to shave down. Like I was still completely. So then he was like, okay, he's like, come back at whatever. This was in the morning. He's like, come back at 7 o'clock. I can spray then. So I went home. My sister shaved me down in my kitchen because it was good daylight in there. And then I went back and the guy sprayed me.
Yeah, I'm a hairy guy, so it sucks. I've been getting laser hair removal for like 3 years.
Yeah.
And still grows back.
Yeah.
Next question is, what music is playing in your car?
In my car, I like easy to listen to music. I mean, I'm not a huge country music guy, but I like that in the car. When I train, I listen to like either like, you know, hard old school rap or like hard intense like EDM music. Something just like fast, hard to like, you know, keep my energy up.
Happiest day in your life was what?
Happiest day in my life? Probably the day I got engaged to Melissa.
Okay. How about if you weren't in bodybuilding, what would you be doing?
Oh shit. Nothing. Bodybuilding. That's no other answer to that one.
Okay. How about, this is the final question. One bodybuilder or fitness celebrity that you'd want to have on your side in a bar fight is who and why?
Who I'd want to have on my side in a bar fight and why? That's a good one. I mean, I would have said Rich Piana, but he's dead. I'm trying to think who would get to have a bar fight. I mean, I just have to take my brother Chris. You know, I mean, you know, I know he's always got my back, and you know, he's big enough fitness celebrity that I can call him one. So I'd take him any day over anybody else. I trust him the most.
So Iain, we got about 5 minutes left, and this is your time to say any thank yous, and then talk to us a little bit about your sponsor, ANS. It was actually our mutual friend Rachel who introduced us.
Yeah.
And then also I know one of your fellow teammates, Devin.
Yep.
Devin Chalak. So talk to us a little bit about ANS. How long have you been with the company?
So just over 2 years, and I just re-signed with them for another 3. So, I mean, I'm going to be with them for, you know, hopefully as long as I'm bodybuilding, I'd like to stay with them. I mean, you know, the 2 guys that run it, Nick and Chatal, I mean, have become, you know, really good friends of mine. And they do, you know, a ton for me. I mean, this whole season really was made possible, you know, by, you know, them helping me, you know, and finance for me getting to shows and, you know, my hotels and flights like that. So it's made a lot possible in terms of my, you know, my competitive career. Right. You know, and then also, I mean, having a company that, you know, has products that I actually can use, you know, there's a difference between having a company that you can just endorse and then you throw their products out or sell them to your buddies, and, you know, a company that actually makes good products that, you know, I can use in my prep. Like, I mean, their whey isolate I use every day. Their aminos. I mean, there's tons of products of theirs I use every day. Right. So, you know, they've been absolutely wonderful for me. So, I mean, you know, I hope to stick around there as long as possible, and they'll both be down at the Olympia. We're not having a booth there this year, but they'll be down there. You know, doing their meetings and all that kind of stuff. So, you know, we're going to do some special edition, t-shirts, just ANS shirts, just a small batch, just 25 of them or so, that I'll be giving out at the Meet the Pros on the Thursday. So those will be like kind of one of a kind, got some cool taglines on them, some ANS logos. And we'll be giving out some special deals there as well for some stuff that I'll be giving out as well to Meet the Pros. So that'll be, if you want to, you know, get some good deals on some ANS stuff, you definitely want to come see me at the Meet the Pros.
And then you're also going to be selling some t-shirts. Is that correct?
Yeah. So then I have my other t-shirts that I did advertise on my Instagram about a week ago. I mean, whatever I have left by that time, I mean, I've sold most of them online already. Whatever I got left, I will bring to the Meet the Pros with me. I'll try to hold on to at least another 25 of those. So I'll have about 50 shirts in total. But we want to keep them kind of to a small batch so that they're kind of like, you know, a unique kind of one of, you know, just for this Olympia thing. So, you know, people feel like a little, you know, cool to have them. You know, so we'll have those there. There'll be $20 cash at the booth. If you would like one before that, you can DM me on Instagram and tell me your size and stuff like that, and I'll see if I got them left. And they'll be $30 plus whatever shipping cost. So if you're in the US, it's usually about $15 shipping, Canada a little less. So yeah.
For our listeners, after this show, I'm going to hook Iain up with my design team. I'm going to take his clothing line to the next level.
Okay. Get the fanny packs.
We're gonna get some fanny packs. We're gonna get some sleeveless hoodies. It's gonna be next level.
Yeah, for sure.
Iain, I really appreciate you coming on. I'm super excited for this year's Olympia. I think there's 17 Canadians going into it. So I mean, it's gonna be nuts. You guys should almost like get everyone to start chanting the Canadian anthem or something.
I mean, I don't know if you guys know Zane Watson or if you had him on the show, but this guy, everywhere he goes, brings a busload of people. So wherever there's Zane, there will be enough Canadian fans to fill an arena. So he's always fun to have around.
I'm actually working on getting Zane on next week.
Yeah. I mean, you see this guy when he's at the Arnold or when he did Toronto Pro or anything. I mean, they literally bring busloads of people to the shows, and like he comes out on stage and it's like, it's insane. Like it's the craziest thing you've ever heard. Like hundreds of people just freaking out, you know, they call them the Zaniacs. So he brings quite a contingency of fans, and it's always fun to watch. So, but yeah, there's, I think 17, I'm the only open bodybuilder though. But we got, 5 classic guys, 2 or 3 in the 212. So Zane and Dura in the 212, 3 bikini girls, 2 figure girls, and then a couple fitness girls and maybe 2 physique girls. So yeah, the most we have is the classic physique guys. I think we have 5 because we got Chris, Henry Pierre, Regan, Khaled. So maybe 4, unless I'm missing someone. If I am, I apologize.
Guys, I'm going to have all of Iain's social media handles in the show notes, so make sure to give Iain a follow. I mean, Iain's 27. We're going to see big things. I mean, I don't think Phil Heath even started competing until he was 30.
Yeah, he was just turning pro, I think, at my age, because he did play, you know, high-level basketball and stuff, you know, NCAA basketball, and then he started competing kind of right after that. So I think he was like mid to late 20s, really when he just turned pro. But no, I'm happy with things, how they're going, and I'm very excited for the future. So
yeah, all our members, definitely follow Iain. He's a very humble guy, as you guys can tell, very intelligent. The stereotype, that bodybuilders and stuff are these dumb meatheads. Thank you, Arnold, by the way, for starting that stereotype in the 70s and 80s, because he would always do those stupid movies like Twins and stuff where he'd play like the dumb meathead. Yeah. So that kind of increased. And Arnold was actually an extremely intelligent guy, by the way.
Oh, yeah.
He was very intelligent, but I don't know why he would always play like a dumbass like in movies. So, but this is a perfect example. The guys we've had on, these Olympia guys, they're so smart and so humble, and they're very intelligent. To get to that level, you have to be that way. So this proves it. So definitely add Iain, guys, and let's cheer him on when he competes.
I appreciate that.
Don't just cheer on Iain, cheer on his future wife as well.
Yeah, she'll be up in that top mix for this year's Big Girl Olympia for sure. So she just won the Tampa Pro, so she's got a lot of momentum in there. So we're really hoping for top eight would be nice. Top 6 would be better.
For your host, Trevor Kouritzin, for my co-host, Steve Smee, and for our special guest, Iain Valliere, this has been another episode of Evolutionary Radio. Live your life, look good doing it. Thanks for listening.
Thank you.